All right, folks, it is the Marketplace and Jumpstart Reset Show. I'm Anthony Weeks, executive producer and host, and I'm going to be joined by my colleague from the Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area. I see that Carolyn is in queue. Carolyn, how are you?
Doing well today, Anthony. It's great to see you.
Likewise, as always. And so I know we are waiting Linda to enter the studio, but certainly it's been a little bit toasty on this end. It's been a little warm. I don't know what the weather like is in the DMV area, but
well,
it's been a little warm here.
We are starting to get into spring, and we're really happy about that. Today is a little dreary, showers off and on, but that's a good thing. You know what they say about April showers. So we're excited to be here to talk to you about all things health as it relates to physical, mental, emotional, and to keep our conversation going from a few weeks ago.
Fantastic. All right, so I know that you're
one thing.
Yeah, I know your guest is.
We're going to keep doing this delay thing, Anthony, really?
You know how it is. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But anyway, go right ahead.
One of the things that has been making news around the DC, Maryland, Virginia area has been the latest on the Johnson & Johnson vaccines. And I'm certain you're hearing the same things that we're hearing here. Yesterday, I know, right? The news came down, and obviously just as we're revving up for vaccines, and that's been something that we've been talking a lot about on the show, our area, DC, Maryland, and Virginia, all put a pause on the dispensing. Actually, it's national, but we were out of the box very early on. As soon as those reports started to come in, they put a pause on those vaccines.
Yeah. And it's I find it interesting that its impact in women with the blood clot for the Johnson & Johnson. And I can't imagine, this doesn't help. Let's be honest, right? It doesn't help with the sense of confidence or lack of confidence people have in the process, right? Because obviously, you know, if we're going to at any point have any sense of normalcy, you know, we're going to have to inoculate folk. You know, our society, folks have to get vaccinated so we are able to mitigate the risk. I mean, the vaccine doesn't guarantee or prevent you from getting it. It just simply mitigates the extent or the severity of the symptoms, and you don't die, right? That's what they're saying. Ultimately, that's what they're saying. You don't die, but it reduces the level of the severity of the symptoms.
Exactly. And you know, Anthony, one thing, just to keep things in perspective, one of the things that they have continued to, and by they I mean the CDC, and even FDA have continued to emphasize in Johnson & Johnson. There have been press conferences all over the place. We just had one about 2 hours ago. They're pointing out that in 6.8 million doses, we have 6 of these deaths. Now, as of early this morning, we got information that there are other people other people who have died, that they are now examining the reason for perhaps what that was. These persons had received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So we can't help but be concerned. But those statistics, as I mentioned, it's very, very low, the number of incidences, but it's a high impact incident, because if anybody dies, let's face it, that's a huge thing. Or if anybody gets blood clot. And I noticed somebody is saying, this is crazy, what's next?
Yeah. Well, Pam LaRock said, yep, this is crazy. What's next? Pam, thank you so much for chiming in on the conversation. I think, you know, we're in uncharted territories. Let's be honest, right? A pandemic comes every 100 years, and so, you know, I think we kind of need to expect that, you know, they're going to, through this trial and error, you know, we're going to have to make some adjustments as we go along, right? That's what that's what science is about. That's what technology is about, and that's what the process of evolution. We went from being Neanderthals to who we are today. So we've come a long way. We've come a long way. So we were not always this refined and established as a society. So it took us a long time to get here. So the process continues.
Right. But keeping that in mind, the other thing we want to point out, we're noticing throughout our region, and when I say region, I mean DC, Maryland, and Virginia, as opposed to when you say region, we're noticing that there is an increase of cases, an increase of deaths. We are starting to see those numbers tick back up again. And what's happening among the vaccinated public, or the fact that the vaccines are out, we're noticing that people are sort of relaxing their guard. Think about what you were doing a year ago. A year ago, when we left our homes, we were spraying our cars down, getting into them, spraying all of our groceries outside, bringing things in one at a time. We were masked up, face shield, plasticed up. And now we're noticing many, many people. I've watched people head for a store without a mask at all. And they had it hanging on their rear view mirror or something. They had to run back to their car and get it because we've become so relaxed. And I think that one of those things is they're starting to see that tourism. I mean, they're starting to see that people are traveling. I'm looking on social media and seeing folks all over the place. They're in this island and they're heading to this location. And so I think that we want to get back to normalcy, but I think that people are not being as safe. And we've got, Pam is also saying, it's like trusting the people who are supposed to be keeping us safe is lacking. Well, I think she makes a good point there as well. That's always been a case. So what we're noticing too is that the impact, now that these vaccines have been paused, the Johnson & Johnson, a lot of the facilities that were opening up, giving this single dose vaccine, are now they're scrambling to get the next best thing so that everybody queued up is not going to be missing their opportunity. So we're hopeful. I will tell you, since I have had both my vaccines and I'm 3 weeks past that second vaccine, I feel I have a level of comfort that even though I'm still wearing my mask and I'm still gloved up, I have a level of comfort in moving about just a little bit easier, but I've not relaxed anything I'm doing.
Yeah. Unfortunately, humans tend to become very complacent once they sense that they've been doing something for so long, they get sort of relaxed and comfortable, and I guess everybody's trying to be so optimistic about the future, and just this pent up demand for wanting to just kind of resuming their normal lives, and we don't want to be premature about it, right? That's the whole idea. You don't want to be premature about it, and a lot of people. And the thing is, it's getting warm out, right? And so therefore, that's when everybody gets out. Everybody's out and about. It's just all the in-person gathering is now starting to, like you said, I see an uptick of that, and
it's happening.
And there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people who have not yet taken the vaccine and who say they won't take the vaccine, and so we got a slippery slope going on right now. I just want you to know, your guest is in the studio.
Wonderful.
I'm waiting for him to turn his camera on. His camera is off before I pull him up. I want to, hopefully he can hear us.
And we're really happy to have this guest on today. This is a really important. This is going to be an important guest for us, an important topic as well. Is he tuning in and getting all queued up? Awesome. Hi, Aaron. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I got about 3 more minutes on this other call. About 3 more minutes. But I'm ready to go. I'm not gonna disconnect though. No, I'm not gonna disconnect.
No, we'll put you back in queue.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna disconnect. Okay.
I'll put you back in queue.
So the reason why we're bringing that's hilarious. Don't you love? This is the beauty of live TV. So we're bringing him on today. We mentioned last month we had a wonderful guest, Bridget, who is here in Prince George's County, and she is a double lung and kidney transplant recipient. and an African-American woman, she sort of told us her experience and brought things up to date. Today, we are going to be bringing Ken Waller on. And we're really excited to bring him on because when you have people of color, and it's interesting because people of color make up about 60% of the people in the United States of America that are on the organ donor list. And right now there are well over 100,000 people on that organ donor list. So we're going to be interested in hearing about his experience, what his thoughts are as an organ donor recipient, and just kind of how we can raise that awareness of what we can do as we are preparing to help other people, because the odds are really, really very, very high. And I have a very personal story as it relates to organ donor recipient, organ donor kind of thing. And so we want to keep that in front of the public because there's been lots of conversation around what happened during COVID. Did people still get transplants? And the answer is yes. Were people still becoming organ donors? And the answer is yes. So we want to really talk about that topic with him.
Okay, I think he's ready. So let me cue him up.
Hi, Ken.
Hi, Carol. How you doing?
Very good. It's good to see you. And this is Anthony Weeks, our executive producer. We are really pleased to have you with us here today. We're already live, and we were live just a few minutes ago when we got to see you finishing your other calls. So that's great. Let me just give everybody just a little bit of background on Ken, if you don't mind, Anthony.
Sure. Yep.
Ken Waller is the founder and developer of Fatherhood Focus, which is a program designed to train and mentor young men and fathers. Ken currently also serves as a consultant for educational institutions, faith-based organizations, and community mentoring programs. He is the author of the upcoming book, Making It Clear, and the host of K. Waller Speaks, which is the Behind the Inspiration podcast. He's also a member of the Maryland Business Roundtable for Education and Maryland Scholar Speakers Board. So he has a long list of other accolades and accomplishments, but we're really pleased to have you here, Ken. It's good to see you.
Thank you for having me on, Carol, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share such information. So I really appreciate being here. Hi, Anthony. I follow you. So you're doing an awesome job. So thanks a lot for engineering. So again, I just want to thank you so much, Carolyn, for inviting me to this broadcast.
Great. Thank you. And Linda will be popping in as soon, or she is having some behind the scenes technical issues, but she's going to have that under control. But Ken, we wanted to bring you on, being that it is National Organ Donor Awareness Month, if you will. We wanted to bring you in because we realized that you're, in talking with you, we found out that you were an organ donor recipient. And we really want to raise awareness as it relates to people of color around organ donor, becoming an organ donor, and what it means to be an organ donor recipient. So we'd like to hear a little bit of your story.
Well, you know, it's ironic that even our past had the opportunity to cross based on the fact of we do share some similarities in regards to organ transplants and things of that nature. I was one of those guys, if you will, that never really paid a lot of attention to my body. I went to my regular appointments occasionally, you know, I did a yearly physical and that was it. However, I've noticed in our community, especially the African-American community, as far as from the male standpoint, we don't really look at the underlying issues that we all have. If we get a headache, take an aspirin, go to bed. If we get a stomach ache, drink a ginger ale, go lay down. Get a roll of Tums, Rolaids, or whatever, and go sit down. We don't really identify that, you know, there could be some underlying issues with our bodies. So I really wasn't that bad, if you will, but obviously bad enough. I wind up getting some type of infection, bacteria infection that shut my liver and kidneys down. They did not expect me to live, but as you can see, I'm here doing pretty well. Thank God for that. But I was told by my specialist, who just so happened to be one of the professors at the University of Maryland Medical Center, that that could have been avoided if I had picked that up earlier, years earlier. Which again, coming from an environment where most of the men didn't go to the doctors, we didn't do our regular checkups, we didn't do any of those things, and of course, it finally caught up with me. So what I would say in regards to this whole conversation is that we have to be better listeners as men, especially Black men, of our bodies. We have to take advantage of that insurance that we're paying from our jobs to make sure that we're utilizing that insurance. I said this earlier on another show that I don't know too many females, too many women that don't keep their appointments, that don't go to the doctor regularly, that don't make sure that if there's an ailment. I mean, I know that people, if their finger hurt or their leg hurt or their knee hurt, they are calling that physician to make sure that those things are diagnosed the proper way. So that's my real strong point that I like to make to my African-American men, that get checked up. Make sure that what you're feeling is really what it is, because there's so many times that we don't pay attention to the things, because first thing we say, to be honest, is that, oh, every time I go to the doctor, you tell me something bad.
Wow.
However, that bad thing, you want to know about it before it gets too bad.
So Ken, now that really, obviously you can't speak on behalf of all men, and you certainly can't speak on behalf of all men of color, but you can be an expert in your own personal opinion and your own personal experience. So when you say, oh, I wasn't that bad, I mean, are you really just kind of being kind to yourself? If this had been going on for a while, is there a more deep-seated reason? You say, well, typically they don't, but do you think it's something deeper than that as to why? Is there some phobia, something behind this?
It's funny you would ask that, because when I said or used the term "not that bad," it's because I had no symptoms.
Oh, okay, all right.
I had no symptoms.
Okay.
I was functioning. Never did drugs, never drank, never hunt, none of that.
Nothing. Okay.
So when I use that term, it's based on the fact that I didn't have any symptoms. So, however, if there's men that are having symptoms, then you need to get those things checked out. You really need to get them things checked out.
And I do like the point that you're making about use this expensive insurance you're paying for. And sometimes we think, well, I'm going to go to the doctor, and you mentioned they may tell me something bad, but I'm going to have a copay. I've seen people balk over a copay and then go and pay that same amount for a lunch, whatever that copay may have been. So as it relates to you, it's one thing to go to the doctor. It's a whole nother thing to agree to an organ transplant. What got you from, oh, I don't go to the doctor that often, to, yes, take my organ out and give me someone else's? What got you there?
Well, I was the same way as a lot of people, especially in the African-American community. I never checked that box on the back of my license that said I'm an organ donor. Based on myth, there was a lot of myth that were involved in making that particular decision. Some of the myths were, will my family have to pay if I get somebody else's organ, or am I like too old to donate? Am I sick and I can't use this, or all these myths. You never heard about it in the African American community with someone needing or donating their organs. Right. So that again is all a part of being knowledgeable about the things that we needed. Again, when they came to me and said, you're going to need a transplant, I'm looking like, I need a transplant. What are you talking about? And they specifically told me what it consists of. And of course, my profession is IT. So I started doing my research. I'm looking and trying to find out different ways, first and foremost, to whether or not I was going to live. So I had to make sure that information was pertinent, and I could understand that information that they were trying to give me in regards to an organ transplant. However, again, you have to make sure that you can debunk the myths. The myths are the things that puts us in a bad situation.
Exactly. And Linda, it is so good to see you. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know what you did this week. This is the best lighting you have ever had. So whatever got you to this point, I don't really care. I don't care if you're suspended from a rooftop. You look amazing. This is the best lighting ever. So
Well, live anything has its, we have the gremlins in our technology, and Ken and Carolyn. Ken, technology, and
Yeah.
I have been able to listen in with anticipation of joining this great conversation since 12:30. But the gremlins of my system. But you know what? I'm glad I'm here now, and this is great. And thank you, Carolyn, and happy anniversary to Orange Wall Enterprises as we celebrate on this Wellness Wednesday. And we just thank you for the applause, and we applaud you. That's an amazing story. That's a massive amount of courageous, to be courageous and brave going into that. So I thank you for the conversation. I was a listening fan a minute ago, and now I'm with you all.
okay, so now you're on, and and Ken made some. We in a prior show we debunked some of the myths. Ken, one of the things we thought, we talked about the fact that people are there's just historically there is mistrust among people of color when it relates to certain medical procedures, and organ transplantation is a huge one. I've heard people say, and honestly, I've actually felt myself, well, they won't try to save me if I'm an organ donor. Like there might be somebody else fancier than me that needs this organ. And we've also heard it said that, they won't wait till we're all the way dead. And if we do, our organs will go to somebody much more deserving. I mean, so those kinds of things, we may chuckle and laugh, but that's a huge commitment to agree. First of all, by the time you need an organ, you're already experiencing some life-ending issues. So you're in an emotional state anyway. And now you have all of these things. If the myths are there, chances are you're going to opt out of something that could save your life and prevent us from having met someone like you.
I tell you, it's so interesting that you mentioned that. Just that point alone is that when you get to that stage where you actually need a transplant, it really is too late. My story, again, my personal story, is that I had an unheard of situation. I had my organ in 1 week.
Wow.
1 week. I was that sick. So my priority level on the list elevated itself based on my condition. One thing I will also say too, Carolyn, just to follow up a little bit on what you were saying earlier during this particular conversation, is that that myth is crazy. These people at the hospital don't know you. So they're not going to wait till you're sick and they say, oh yeah, we can use that right there inside of that guy's body for somebody else. That does not happen.
Wow.
They don't know you. They don't have any association at all with that. And I'll tell you why it's important for me to also add this little point on. I spoke at the Living Legacy Foundation to their staff, and some of the things that I shared with them, they didn't really understand it, because they're basically in the business of trying to secure organs and things like that. There's certain words we can't use about this organ transplant thing.
Right.
Yeah, you can't say. However, they didn't know. So it really gives you an opportunity from the other perspective, as the myths and all that we had in the African American community about organ transplant. It changes your life dramatically. It changed my life so dramatic that most of the people in my family right now are organ donors, because they saw how much life it'll give. Because when we look at donations as far as organs, there's several different organ donations that we can have from one particular person. So I've been fortunate enough to meet people under all different circumstances, needing all those particular organs at some particular time or another. So it's very important to get that message out.
You know what, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because from a statistics standpoint, a single organ donor, if you donate your eyes, you can help 2 people. If you donate your organs, you can help up to 8 people. If you donate your tissue, you can help, you can impact up to 75 lives. So this is all from one person. And that's really, and this is, at this point, we're talking about what I'm referring to specifically would be deceased organ donors. We know that they're living organ donors as well, and those are ones. Now, and that's interesting in terms of statistics. I see Anthony on. Hold on before we get to this thought. Are we at the top of the hour?
We certainly are. And I want to thank I want to thank you so much for being so conscientious of that, to manage the clock. Hi, Linda. Good to see you.
Good to be here.
Thank you, Ken, for being part of the program.
My pleasure.
So what we'll take, it is the top of the hour, so we'll take a station ID break. This is the Marketplace and Jumpstart Reset Show. This is segment 1 on health and wellness. And our special guest is Ken Whaler. He is a junior. He is the founder, developer of Fatherhood Focus. I want to say thank you and welcome to the program. We'll take a quick break and we'll come right back after these messages. This is the Callaloo Network, broadcasting on Tempo, La Mega Mundial, and WSDX Radio, as well as K Radio. We'll be right back.
The reopening measures are slowly taking place amid the coronavirus pandemic. Malls and restaurants are working again, and factories move more and more of their personnel back into the offices. However, that doesn't mean that people won't get sick anymore. On the contrary, there are now many more chances of spreading the virus even farther. To protect the employees and clients of your business, we developed thermocontrol screening stations. It is a quick and safe solution. Thermocontrol measures temperature at a distance of 25 centimeters. The device is autonomous. It does not require an additional employee to conduct temperature measurements or log the results. It can measure and even recognize masked faces. All of the results are logged automatically and stored in the database. You can use the station to ensure your clients and employees access to your building automatically.
John Smith, Rombach.
The station can issue entrance passes and grant access to the building after it measured the person's temperature. If the visitor's temperature is high, a notification will be sent and a potential carrier of the virus can't access the building. Thermocontrol can send SMS and messenger notifications, as well as notifications over email. Temperature measurement technologies allow businesses to ensure the safety of people and potentially save lives all over the world.
Small business is a part of all of us each and every day. It's where we eat, it's where we shop, it's where we go to meet our friends and colleagues. In the wake of COVID-19, our small business community desperately needs our help. We must do our part to help our local communities to once again thrive. We must focus our attention on the small businesses that are the fabric of our great nation. SureUp is a network of small business owners, their employees, and local consumers all working in unison to support each other. By creating incentives for consumers to think local before considering regional and national providers to fulfill their needs, we create local job opportunities and rebuild our communities. In addition, through AI-driven tools and machine learning, in just 5 minutes a day, SureUp assists business owners in improving their social media presence, which enhances their visibility among consumers and levels the playing field so that local businesses can better compete with large, name brand online competitors. When local businesses leverage the ShareUp platform, full-time and part-time employees, whether W-2 or 1099, are rewarded with a variety of voluntary perks and member benefit options. These include discounts on the things people do every day, access to low-cost, subscription-based telehealth and teletherapy, discounted prescription drug plans, connection to exclusive Prosper resources, and so much more. All for less than the cost of a cup of coffee each day. The Jumpstart Marketplace is here to support the health and wellness of individual employees, as well as the health of businesses in the local communities in which we live and work. We're all in this together, so join us as we reinvigorate our local community and improve the physical and financial health of working America.
All right, now that's what I call a break.
Lots of good information, right?
Lots of really good information. And as a matter of fact, for those listeners and viewers that are joining us right now, we're sharing some really important information. We have Ken Waller on with us, and Ken is the founder of Father Focus or Fatherhood Focus. But today we're talking to him about his experience, at least initially, about his experience as an organ donor recipient. And Ken, as we were finishing that other conversation, we were talking about the fact that you mentioned some of the things, some of the myths. Once you educate people and they know better, they can clearly do better. One thing that we wanted to point out, you said that most of your family members have now signed up as organ donors.
Which is terrific.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, it goes right back to the old myths that, if I pass away, what are they going to do? I need my organs. I don't think you're going to need those. So, that myth actually circulated, believe it or not, Carolyn and Linda, that myth circulated and has been handed down for years and years and years in our community. Yes. So, education, this educational piece is so important. Unfortunately, for my part, I had to educate other people through my own experience.
Here we go.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's why it's so important for me to share this type of information with anybody that I can, because that myth is a thing that holds us back. I was looking at a stat of mine, and I don't know if anybody know this, but every 9 minutes, someone goes on to the transplant list.
Right.
That's amazing. But
every 9 minutes.
And is there a corresponding number, those who come off because they have been successful in receiving a transplant of need? Mm-hmm. Because I would think that number isn't as fluid as those who go on, unfortunately.
It's not. And to date, I'm looking at stat here from February 2021, there has been 39,000 recipients of organs.
Oh, okay.
As of February 2021.
Did
however,
you say 39,000
successful?
39,000.
An organ transplant of some sort.
Yes, from those 8 areas of transplantation. Yes, in
this year alone. Let's just take it out of the
way. Exactly. So we're talking 2 months.
My goodness, is that in the United
within
States
2 months
of America?
Yeah, I'm looking at the stats, glance stats. This is from the number of waiting lists from February 2021. That stat says transplants were performed in 2020 were 39,000.
Right. So all of last year.
All of last year.
Look at all of last.
Not the 1 month. Not the 1 month.
Oh,
all
because
of
I
last
thought it was this year. I was hearing 2021. All of last
no,
year.
He was looking at the most updated information.
Right. From 2021. Now, again, if I could, I want to touch on this Please. Other big one that I'm looking at here. It's kind of sad. However, 17 people die every day because they didn't receive an organ transplant.
There we go.
And that's because those 17 that we know of are actually on the list waiting for.
Exactly. They're
But
waiting.
They're waiting, but you know, I'm sure there is that first cue of not only getting the diagnosis and then therefore you should be on, but those who are not even sure there's probably a population of individuals that are waiting to actually be accepted onto the list. And I don't know what that process is, because I think that's one of the other myths that you may have talked about before my absence at the front end of the show.
Well, he didn't talk about it yet, so you're good. You're in good
Great,
place.
because
Yeah,
one
I'm
of
going
the
to talk
things
about that. Yeah.
that really we have to also talk about is some of the things that we speculate and some of the things that we have in the media know, and that is the harvesting, illegal harvesting also of organs around the world, and that when we talk about the pluses of organ donation, we have to also really be careful to be mindful to talk about some of the challenges and why it's important, therefore, that we all become designated organ donors so that we can squash that really illicit behavior, that very devastating to our communities when people, as we've seen reported in the news, are missing and found without their organs because perhaps they've been harvested for reasons, nefarious reasons that we just can't say, but we certainly can speculate on. I mean, it just goes to mind that it's important to emphasize why we must all become designated organ donors when that time comes, what we can do to sustain life, to support life, either in a deceased state or if we're fortunate to be a live donor, to be able to support those individuals and look them in the face or know their story and know that you've done something remarkable to sustain life and support ongoing quality of life.
And I do want to say that's another reason why, Linda, you and I both wanted to bring Ken on, because to see a person of color, a male person of color,
Yes.
And he explained the fact that, sometimes men of color, they don't want to get the doctor, they don't want to get this check. And so there is a giant leap between, being relaxed in all those areas and finally saying, yes, I need to go to the doctor. And yes, I will submit to an organ transplant. But knowing that, Ken, by you sharing your story, you're helping people understand, look how much you've been able to accomplish since you got your organ. And even though that's life impacting and obviously it's a bittersweet sort of situation because the fact that you're here is as a result of the fact that someone else is not. So those things, that's a completely different discussion. For right now, knowing that you can be a spokesman, even though you're unwittingly or unwillingly, you can be a spokesman by example for other people, and you've been helping to educate your family. That's really a good thing.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of instances where I get too deep into this. But Carolyn, you did touch on a very point, a point that really is dear to me. My transplant happened because of the level I was on the list. That list is based of the severity of your condition. So that's how, that's how you balance that. So it's not like somebody down the street and you're friends with some. Doesn't work like that. Now, again, it goes right back to the same thing. I had that same mentality. I laid there once that team of doctors came into my room and they were like, oh, we don't know. And that wasn't a good feeling. So I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm just going to go ahead and see what happens. But once they told me that the priority of your level of illness is what pushes you up the line. So I guess saying all that to say that I was fortunate enough that, I did receive that transplant. But let's just step back a little bit. Just from a perspective of understanding how this whole thing works in regards to where you were in your illness and how I got to be, I don't know, where I am right now, whatever. But after I went in a hospital weighing about 230 pounds, 230. I came out of the hospital on that July 14th weighing 157 pounds.
Wow.
I could not walk. I could barely stand up. I could not talk. I couldn't do anything.
Mm.
Right now, I always say it in surgery world, the doctor will always come in and say, "Okay, let me see your Mercedes-Benz emblem," and that's that big old S on my stomach. You know, so I guess what I'm trying to say is that as men, and especially Black men, we have to identify issues that we're having with our body.
Yes.
You know, and this conversation is so ironic because I was on the show this morning and was basically trying to relay the same information, that I was that guy too. You know,
why?
hey,
Why is that? What's happening with our men that health is only as the weakened athlete, but not necessarily as the creation that God has made, and you know, you need to take care of the practical side of your body, not just getting yourself in shape to prove a point on the football field or the cycling team or your weekend sports, or to even mow the grass and not feel exhausted, but really to have a sustainable quality of life at your best. What's the holdup?
Yeah, I'm going to answer that question in a couple different ways. You probably had to get me come back on to give you the history side, the real history side, but I'll hold off on that.
We want to know that.
I'll because what happens briefly is that through time, throughout our journey to this country, once we got here, we weren't given the proper health care under any circumstances. So when we were able to start getting, they were developing different ways of managing our health, we were always the guinea pig, which meant we never had an opportunity to identify certain things and how they work in our community. We were like, no, if you want to get real with it, think about Tuskegee. Think about why we have this certain myth right now in regards to taking the COVID vaccination. There's certain things that go on in our communities that we're not aware of. So if we don't do our homework, if we don't understand that everything that transpires doesn't necessarily mean that we're not going to be able to survive it, and take the initiative to learn, do your research, So as men, we're worrying about what it looks like. You're taught when you're young to be this tough guy. You know, you're tough to be this guy. Oh man, it's just get a pack of Rolaids, just drink a ginger ale. You know, I mean,
walk it off? How about
exactly walk it off? Hey, look,
buddy,
take a nap. Take a nap, man. What you complaining for? So we've been through all those particular areas of understanding what our health really should be. Again, I went to the doctors once a year. So within that year, if there was something going on with me, I wouldn't have known.
Right.
So I encourage people. I encourage these young Black guys. I encourage even females who may not. However, you guys are more on the positive side of things because you get your appointments. You go. You make sure that nothing's really bothering you. And I still say again, preventive maintenance is the key to the success of your health. Because you know we don't look at that.
And you know, even though this is Donor Awareness Month, they recognize that having these kinds of important conversations with people of color is so great that they have now designated August as Minority Donor Awareness Month, because about 60% of the people at any given time on the transplant lists in the United States are people of color. And I will tell you, that is a huge number. And when you think about, we're cheering and celebrating the fact that there were 30-some thousand successful transplants last year, for 100 and some thousand people on the list, between 110 and 113,000 people at any given time. That's not really a number to celebrate, especially if those, if people are losing their life because an organ doesn't get to them in time.
And they're not, and now that Ken has educated us in terms of you have to be among the sickest of the sickest to really be considered. But so my question on that particular comment is, so then how do we look to modern medicine in that case? If the sickest of the sickest, you are someone who is more eligible than others. You're all eligible, but you have to prioritize, obviously. But what is the chances of that success rate? Is there a scoring process that says, in addition to being up at the in the highest quartile or percentage, but are there other factors that would say this would be a successful and sustainable transplant for this particular person.
Mhm.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because it sounds like I just have to
Yes.
be really sick and then
No,
therefore
well,
I'm more
Yes.
eligible.
well, he's going to
Not.
clear that up.
Yeah, it's not really the case. You have to be extremely sick. However, there's a lot of factors that factor into your transplant. Your size, whether or not you have any additional illnesses. Will this particular donation of your transplant organ, will it actually sustain, or will it kick in other organs? Again, I can only talk from the organ side. Will that affect the other organ? And the biggest thing that I find in all of this is that you have to understand that it's not so much about who you are. Everybody think it's like you have to know something. I didn't know anybody.
Right.
I didn't know anybody.
Well, it does make us wonder. There's been some famous folks that one day they look great and we see them in the media or the White House, won't name names. But then the next thing you know, you hear that they are a heart transplant recipient with advanced age. And you're kind of wondering what happened to the young person that was not as wealthy and not as have such great access to health care. And is that one of the determinants of, is it really one of the determinants, or is there really a level playing field in these opportunities in the real talk?
So let me share something that Ken sort of said, and just to go on. Now, he mentioned you get your organ quicker based on your level of illness. Yeah. So to get on an organ transplant list, this is not an elective surgery that you say, but I think I'd love a couple of new lungs. It's not that way. So you're sick enough, and your doctor will start to tell you, eventually you might be a candidate for this kind of transplant of this particular organ. That might be a life-saving opportunity for you. And you would be then, and you can voluntarily work towards being on that list. And as he mentioned, if you are a smoker, if you are obese and doing nothing about it, if you have other problems, if you are a drinker, if you use drugs, those are all eliminators. But if you're a person in good health trying to maintain your list, your health, you can get on the list. Now, the way they determine who gets the organ faster, it's the person closest to dying gets it faster. If there's a way they can sustain your life, if 10 people all have the same level of sickness, then they're all at that same level. And I speak from a personal experience because living in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, this is a very hot area for transplants, if you will. And so that list is big and the wait for certain organs is really high. We personally had to move to the Midwest. When we moved to the Midwest and my husband was evaluated, that immediately made him one of the top 10. When an organ became available, and these organs are assessed through UNOS and through other organizations. I mean, and it's all done very quickly, 24 hours a day. When they realized the person who might have been number 1 or number 2 could not qualify for that organ, it went to him. So he was one of the top 10 sickest people in that region. And that's how he got his organ in just a few days.
Ken, how long have you, it's such a wonderful anniversary, and Carolyn gave me the story of her wonderful husband and what they do to commemorate. And it's touching, it's amazing, and it's a great way to honor the organ donor as well, in addition to the recipient and really appreciating life. Do you have something special that you do? Do you think about it? Do you celebrate annually? Do you have anything, on that day that you remember, the change, something that was so transformational? It's hard to fathom unless you actually walk in those steps or support someone walking in those steps.
Well, Linda, there's several things. I think the biggest thing is that I'm always grateful. You'll probably never see me frowning. I'm always smiling. I always mention my sense of humor to everybody because it's important for me to be that way. I think you're wasting a lot of time being negative about saying, oh, it's me and wow. And, but don't get me wrong. There are days when I had that quote unquote survivor's remorse, where I sat by myself and I'd be like, wow, why am I here? And I get to a certain point sometimes, just to be honest, I'm like, man, I could be laying down, I'm living with somebody's organ in me. I mean, it tears me up. But one thing that I will share with you that is utmost important is to be able to share your story. A lot of people don't share their story. If nobody shares their story, how can you encourage somebody if you never say anything about you? Exactly. So I'll be the first one to tell anybody my story. It's long, but I always try to do what we call back in the day the remix. So I'll give you the remix. Yeah, I'll give you the remix. But it's just important. I don't particularly my I say my family, which is only my kids. I'm not married or anything like that, but my kids actually celebrate. They celebrate because they were there from step A to step B. I didn't have to do anything. I did absolutely nothing. They did everything. As far as putting my meds together, as far as talking to my specialist, as far as making my appointments, when I got home, they took me to my appointments, all those things. I just remember the date. I remember how my life changed dramatically. And I also have to, again, make sure that I share my story. So there's not like a celebratory type of thing that I do. I'm just grateful. I'm super grateful. And I don't take anything for granted.
You, to look at you, we would say, wow, you looked fantastic.
Thank you.
And we are so happy that you're here to tell that story, however long, however short, regardless, it's powerful. And it's one that has to be told, not just in, Minority Donor Transplant Month or Organ Donation Month, but in April as well, National Organ Donation Month, because I am a donor designee. I think that it's a critical thing to do. I won't need these pieces and parts in where I'm heading after I'm out of my body. So why not let those pieces and parts become someone else's life-sustaining benefit? We encourage everyone to go onto your local registry, register as an organ donor. Make sure that your family members know that is expressly your wish. You can decide in your will or in some other critical your life will or a will and testament what you do want to donate, because you can also even designate what do you want to be able to donate. And it's just going to make such a huge difference, as you can see in Ken's life. And we applaud you. It's so courageous, and your family so in addition to just spoiling you and taking good care of you, and now many, you say, are donors themselves. Are those so they're still with us, or are they many?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Great.
They're all here, and I want to touch on something else too, Lynn, that you mentioned in your conversation. You can also just go to DMV, MVA, wherever you live, Maryland, and just check the box. You can go online and do this. Just check the box. That's all you have to do. Because again, that life that you check that box for could be somebody in your family.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's powerful stuff. Yeah. Oh my!
And it's interesting. We've all been asking ourselves with COVID-19, how did that impact things? We did notice that in 2020 with COVID, there was a reduction in the number of live organ donations. And so that's when you have a living recipient who maybe will donate a kidney or something like that. So they've asked that those things be put off because obviously we're dealing with a pandemic. But there was actually a 6% increase in the number of deceased organ transplants. And I want to say too, I used to think, well, I'm too old to donate an organ. And it's interesting, the demographics have really changed. The ages between, go ahead, Ken, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to mention, that's one of the other biggest myths. That myth just alone.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I thought that too.
No.
I always thought that.
And let me share something else with you guys. Also, people say, well, I'm sick. I have high blood pressure. I have this, I have that. Has nothing to do with that organ. If that organ is healthy, it can be used. Wow. It can be used.
And can organs become healthier in a healthier body? Is there any science that we know of? So whereas the next person who receives my heart, or the next person that receives my lungs and or kidneys are doing much better than I am in their daily life habits that actually improve the health of that particular organ, because overall my health is improved.
Let me share this with you. I'm glad you asked that question.
Good question.
I was always an athlete, played football, basketball, all that stuff. Fine, ran track. I thought I was a pretty decent athlete. However, during my latter years, I wasn't as active as I used to be. So I don't know if that was all because of the internal illness that was going on, unrecognized, I say, that seemed like once I got my transplant, man, I got fired up. I mean, I started running. I had the same trainer. I think I may have mentioned it to you before, Linda, during one of our conversations. I had the same trainer for 19 years.
Yeah.
And I'm going to shout him out. He's actually a trainer for some of the Ravens football players. And I was his first client, outside client. So I had him for 19 years. So I guess what my point is that organ, no matter what that organ could be, it can only enhance what you currently have. Because obviously, if the thing that was inside of you wasn't functioning at 100%, then of course it's going to help everything else out. Because again, I don't want to take a lot of time saying this, but I had kidney and liver failure at the same time. Unheard of. Wow. Unheard of.
You were on your way out.
Out of here. However, once the transplant happened, my kidneys, no, I take that back. My kidneys kicked in first, and then after the transplant, everything kicked in. I am so thrilled to be here today, and I don't have a problem letting people know that organ transplant is really important, especially in the African-American community. And it's also important to know that there's a lot of lives that can be saved off of one donation. So check that box.
And so Ken, we want to ask you this, because you're all about health and good health. Have you gotten your vaccine? I know that's a personal question, but as an organ donor recipient, as an organ transplant recipient, have you gotten your vaccine?
Well, and see, that's why I know you don't check me out. My YouTube page, I actually videotape myself.
Right. That's why I'm asking our listeners and viewers.
Okay. Now this is going to be funny.
That would be a big fat.
You guys are funny. Yesterday, I received my second shot.
Yay! Congratulations.
So
well, I knew the answer to that. But how would our listeners and viewers know? They need to know.
Yes, I did.
Everything.
And I'll tell you why. My doctor, again, she's a specialist. I did a telemed appointment with her, and she's like, this was a month ago. She's like, you're going on the list to get your shot. I'm like everybody else. I'm like, yeah, I had to see, However, she said, no, you're going. I get a call, and they say, can you be here tomorrow at 10 a.m.? I'm like, yeah. So I went, got my first shot. Of course, I journaled it. I journaled it. I videotaped all the way through. And of course, on Tuesday, yesterday, Tuesday, I got my second shot. So that's another thing I'll say to everybody in the community, whoever's listening, get your shot. Get your shot, because again, that myth, it's another myth that's going on in our community. I hear people say all the time, what's in it? Get the shot. Get the shot.
And any reactions, any adverse, any concerns, because we don't want people to be left. I mean, we want healthy people. We want people who need to get the shot, who are not recipients, to move forward with their vaccination. Is, we know that we are hearing the stories today on Johnson & Johnson. They will get that, it's a precautionary measure to make sure that the broader community will not suffer the extreme rare occasion of these blood clots. We really have to not get too over sensationalized. It's important because there are some deaths behind it, but in comparison to the millions of people who are receiving the shot. So it's great that there's a pause for that cautionary potential, but more importantly, those who like you or organ donor recipients, we want to make sure that they're hearing you specifically about getting their COVID vaccine.
Let me touch on that briefly. First and foremost, anyone who had or had a transplant, your immune system has already been super compromised, which means there are medications that we take on a regular basis, daily basis, that you have to take to keep your immune system from being attacked by foreign things that goes on. So we understand that. However, it lowers your rate of immunity too. because it has to be balanced. I go to the lab every 2 weeks still.
Right.
Okay.
Checking
To
on
make
those
sure
levels.
make sure my numbers are right. So if you're currently in that state, then you have to get some type of vaccination to even hold off or ward off any potential problems, which means your organ basically is being protected from rejection based on the medication that you're taking that lowers your risk to get something.
Wow.
So you have to take the vaccine, and I'll share this with anybody that just usually randomly that doesn't have a transplant or haven't had one, is you take that vaccination because I will share with you the benefit outweighs the cost.
Absolutely.
You can get over those symptoms,
Absolutely.
you know, and I've been fortunate. Only thing sore me is my arm. That's it. It's a little swollen, but that's it. So I'm just happy about that. So yeah.
All right. Well, we see we've got our fearless leader back, our executive producer, and also John Clendenning that's there with him already for the next segment.
Outstanding. Hi, John. Did you have a question?
All right. No. We got it. We unfortunately
Oh,
we're out of
have to
time.
go.
We're out of
I
time.
know
We're
we're already over.
yes.
We
All right.
just waiting for you
So
to pop in, but thanks.
thank you, Ken. Thank you, Ken, so much for your valuable contribution to the program. And as usual, look forward to having you back on the program.
That'll be awesome. Thank you very much, Anthony, Carolyn, Linda.
Thank you.
Talk with you guys.
Everyone,
Have a great day.
enjoy. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll
Bye-bye.
talk soon.